Welcome to Coach Soul, the podcast where we explore therapeutic ways to the best versions of ourselves. I'm your host, Steve Hudgens. I'm a licensed professional counselor dedicated to helping you navigate life's challenges. In each uplifting episode, we'll discuss mental health, relationships, self-care, emotional well-being, and personal growth. Join me and with my co-host, Kenya Evelyn, a therapeutic life coach, where sometimes we'll even welcome special guests to our show that share their experience and expertise. So let's embark on this transformative path together and discover a healthier and happier you. Hey, welcome back to Coach Soul. I'm your host, Steve Hudgens. And one of the things that I am enjoying about this new year is it's a new year. It's a way to start new things. And so we try to look at better ways of bettering ourselves. And at the same time, it's also questioning what has happened in our past. What are some ways that we can improve our life? And that's how I look at what are some ways of setting goals, not resolutions, because resolutions tend to go by the wayside. And when I think about where we have been, is where are we going to go? What do we want to do for ourselves in the future? And next month is Love Month. I call it Love Month because it's got Valentine's Day in the smack of the second week of the month. And it just seems like that is the only month of the year, the day of the year that we just want to shine with our love and the greatest and the best. And we got flowers and balloons and chocolates and bears and oh my, is that what Valentine's Day is about? We capitalize on sharing and showing our love for one another. One of the things that I don't think we talk about is loving ourselves, especially when it comes to dating. And one of the things that I've learned in dating is being able to take a sabbatical. I'm in the middle of my research of my dissertation. I should be getting done by March of this year. I've already have all the recordings that I need. And what I have found among the mix of this is 92% believe there is a lack of boundaries within their relationships. And that comes with lack of intimacy, the lack of respect for one another. There was expectations that were being placed. Children became first above the other spouse. And we know that sometimes that can happen in our first marriages and second and so forth. The key is, can we love ourselves and being able to look at what is our self-worth so that we can be full, whole, and complete in order to accomplish the love that we want in our life. To me, when I think about love, it's a silent echo of two souls that are recognizing the shared humanity. It's both a canvas on which we paint our deepest fears and the mirror that reflects our most profound truths. But it's important to love ourselves. And I don't mean that in a selfish way. I look at finding your foundation for self-worth. When you think about it, the self-worth, it fosters the acceptance. When individuals appreciate and value themselves, they're more likely to extend that understanding and compassion to others. And having that foundation of self-worth also helps to establish confidence that we just don't have to have somebody in our life just to fulfill because we're afraid. Out of the research that I found is that boundaries are important. Healthy boundaries are important, and self-love helps us to establish those healthy boundaries in relationships. Because when you understand your own needs and limits, you're better equipped to navigate those complexities of love without losing your identity and compromising your well-being. And, you think, okay, I love my children, but I'm being put in the middle to love my spouse too. And I'm choosing, well, every time I'm going to choose my kids, what is love? When we make that commitment to someone, what is love? And oftentimes, I think about having healthy boundaries as part of love, because how much do we need space or a timeout to recuperate? What if your spouse needs that time to recuperate? Children too. So it's finding that time of being able to look at how do we have health boundaries, because self-love helps establish those healthy boundaries in relationships, because you begin to understand your own needs and your limits, and you're better equipped to navigate those complexities of love without losing your identity or compromising your well-being. And I often hear from women, why are men so emotionally unavailable? I remember I was dating someone, and we had broken it off, and due to some things that have popped up, but we're friends. And she calls me, and she's crying on the phone. And this is like 4 weeks after we were together, and we dated for a while. And she felt comfortable to call me as she was crying, and she was driving. I heard her in the background. She was driving. And the first thing after I said hello, she's like, why are men so emotionally unavailable? If I wasn't healthy, I could have reacted to, well, what are you talking about? I was emotionally available to you at the time we were dating. But I didn't take it personally because I knew where she was going with this conversation. The thing about it is being confident within yourself and knowing healthy boundaries also knows where your emotions lie. In other words, how is it my emotion to own? Is it her emotion to own? I felt bad for her because here she is upset and crying, but at the same time, I felt at least I knew that the relationship was good enough for her to call me. So she's calling, and I said, okay, what's going on? I hear you're driving and you're crying. Well, I'm going to go pick up my stuff from his house. Oh, see, we did not have intimacy between us because I'm faith-based, and I want to be able to be true to my faith. And she honored that and respected that, and I appreciated that. At the same time, I found out the reasons why she felt men were unavailable emotionally. And I'm trying to explain to everybody, sabbaticals help in between relationships. Sabbaticals help to figure out who we are, what are we needing, what is our focus? Because oftentimes it's real easy to lose our identity because we want to people please. And sometimes that's what happens in anxious attachment disorders, that the codependency stems from, that it wants to create out of fear that I need somebody to love me because I don't feel like I'm worthy. I had a client today tell me that she didn't feel like she was worthy, that she doesn't feel like she was attractive, that she has to people please in order to help people to know that she's fun, she's available, and things of that nature. And so when you think about what we do in the moment, it's based upon fear. And having a sense of love helps to cast out that fear, because we begin to have that emotional availability. And emotional availability is loving oneself. That leads to a greater stability. Because when we're secure in our own love, we freely express the vulnerability and openness with others that fosters that deep connection. Because part of dating, we want to, avoid the codependency, because when we have codependency and we're relying on this other person, then we compromise ourselves. So when I think about dating, it's about taking that sabbatical. And when I think about, sabbatical, it's not saying you got to take a year off, but it does help. It's finding yourself again, because oftentimes we go inward, we blame ourselves for whatever happened, or the woulda, shoulda, coulda, had moments that gets us into that spiral effect of what did I do wrong? Oftentimes, it's not about what we did wrong, but sometimes it's just not a good fit. I cared about her. I enjoyed our relationship. I enjoyed what we had. But there was something in me that I needed to find within myself. And so, ending the relationship, I got into school and getting my doctorates. And that was helping me also to find a little bit more about myself as to what was causing me to be able to have an anxious attachment growing up, getting into relationships. And now here it is, 2017, the spouse that I was married to left. She remarried 6 months later because my health was wonky at the time. And here I am, 8 years later, cancer free, won't come back. Research has shown that it's past the 5-year mark. It won't come back. And so I'm excited for my life and what this chapter has within me. And so when I think about a sabbatical, I took time to find me. I took time to pour into myself, and it helped me to have this confidence of being able to be secure in my attachments. Oftentimes, anxious attachment disorders causes codependency. And we want to avoid codependency because self-love reduces the risk of codependent relationships. It's where your self-sense of worth is excessively tied to another person. Loving oneself encourages interdependence rather than reliance. In other words, you are my world type comment. Well, we are whole people coming into making a complete picture, so to speak. And so when I think about how to love ourselves, there's got to be some authenticity. We got to get real. And so in my dating, I want to be real. And what I find is interesting is that talking to other people, it's different as you get older. And of course, COVID has not helped in the dating world. And you hear a whole bunch of stories about men and women and what they should or shouldn't do. I really believe it has to start with self. And I don't mean that in a selfish way. What I mean by self-love is authenticity. When you're authentic to yourself, when you can have this honesty, it creates a space for genuine love to flourish. And it's built on mutual respect and understanding rather than the need to fill unacknowledged desires or insecurities. In the research that I've been doing, it's interesting because the majority of the women sought the divorces because there was unhappiness that's there. Men, for most of us who are authentic about our love, we will stay with a woman even if she is toxic to us. And is that fair? Probably not. We're hurting ourselves, but it's looking at, can we come to a compromise? That's why I love doing couples therapy. I've had a couples that been on brink of divorce and they're flourishing now because we found ways to work past the fear of hurting each other. And the hurt stems from childhood hurts of not being seen, not having a choice, and not feeling emotionally safe. So authenticity is not this destination, but a resonance that emerges within the echoes of our true self that synchronizes with the whispers of the universe. It's creating a harmony that silences the din of precedence and reveals the depths of our unbridled existence. Cultivating love for oneself can significantly enhance the quality of love that you can offer and receive in relationships with others. And so when I try to speak with men, it's about being aware, not only of your emotions, but being aware of hers, to provide a sense of comfort for her. It's not about trying to fix it, but mainly as being present, helping her to feel seen. And for women, men need words of affirmation. You think about growing up as a boys, who are we raised by primarily as women? And when I think about men, We also need to step up to the plate as fathers and be there for our children, teaching them, mentoring how to treat a woman. But at the same time, about treatment, it's not about just the treatment of a female. It's being present in the moment for her. It's being that rock of Gibraltar that she can, feel at rest and at peace. So when I think about relationships, it's reciprocal. So women too need to be able to nurture their husbands. Oftentimes when I talk to my couples in therapy, I will use this illustration that you ask your husband to go and do the dishes and he doesn't, you get tired of it. And finally, he goes and does it. But as he's doing it, he's putting the dishes in there, and often his wife will come in there and say, well, that's not right. The dishes need to be put this way or that way. And it's like, what the heck? I'm not good enough for you. So instead of griping, complaining about how he's doing the dishes, where's the praises? And men, that goes the same thing for you. A woman doesn't want to be told that she's sexy, that she's hot. Walk up to her if she's cooking in the kitchen. You put your arms around her and say, hey, beautiful, I can cut those carrots up for you. It's not asking, it's about doing. Women want a man to take initiative and being able to have the leadership that's there. And at the same time, men like the nurturing, the affirmation, and that there too. And you think, well, I shouldn't be his cheerleader. Well, think about business. Does the CEO of your company get praises for what he or she does? Probably not. It does get lonely at the top, leading and not having so much direction. It's not so much about complaining about what he does or doesn't do, or what she does or doesn't do. It's about, if we really love ourselves, will we be telling ourselves these things? So authentic love is about serving. Oftentimes I talk to ministers and I say, it's great to hear sermons about how we need to love God, how we need to be able to love our neighbors. Oftentimes we don't hear about having a love for ourselves because it's guilt, shame. My plea to the Christianity world is to bring in one message, and that's a voice of healing. Stop judging the world. The world is already judged. That's why Christ entered into the world. And it's no hope that Christians point out this or that and condemn on judgment. What we need is being able to come together to serve one another. Oftentimes we hear stories about Jesus washing the feet of his apostles. And we say, well, he was teaching them how to serve. And I disagree with the scholars, because 3 years he served on this earth and he was teaching his apostles how to serve. When you think about sitting at someone's feet, that's intimate. And then you begin to wash their feet. It becomes an intimate moment. So what Jesus was trying to do is teach his apostles how to love in their service. When we think about our relationships, it's about serving one another. It shouldn't be about a tit for tat. I mean, I've had 2 or 3 couples already. Well, he said he was going to pay me back. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. If we're having a marriage, why is it being individualized by who pays who back and because there was a bill here or there? The thing about it is how are we serving one another? And first of all, we need to be able to be confident in ourselves and not having to people please. And when we people please, we jeopardize the identity and the authenticity of who we are. When we think about love, love comes with a sacrifice. It's an action in doing. There's going to be times that we don't feel like doing this or that. But where's the compromise so that we can work with each other? So when I think about getting out of a relationship, take a sabbatical. Find out what are some things that you have done. What are some things that has caused? For me, it was my reactivity. and learning that is my childhood hurt wounds I got into the way. And when I became a therapist and studied, I became whole. I have been able to be confident in who I am in secure attachment. That I want to know if I'm doing something so that I can be able to work and address it. If we give the patience, if we look at 1 Corinthians 13, love is patient, love is kind, are we? It's not just one time a month. It's not just February that we celebrate Valentine's Day. It should be every day that we celebrate love, because love is a gift of life. And that gift of life is being able to share who we are with the other person if we're being true and authentic to ourselves. So as February approaches next week, I want you to think about, what ways do I love myself? Am I patient with myself when I do something wrong? Am I being kind to myself, being able to take some rest away from work? Am I maintaining myself by exercising, things that I eat, things that I do? Those are some of the things that I'm trying to express to you about loving yourself. I don't mean that we become selfish in love and do everything for ourselves and forget everybody else. No, that's not love. That's selfishness. But authentic love is be recognizing your areas of opportunity to grow stronger and your strengths that you carry. Is being confident in the ability of who you are. You are worth someone. When I hear in therapy that people say, well, I'm just worthless, there's a passage that I use out of Romans that says, take every thought captive and make it obedient to Christ. But I change Christ and put truth in because it's the same thing. And I ask the person, let's take that thought captive, worthless. Let's make it obedient to that truth. Whose image are you created in? God's. Okay. But if you're saying you're worthless, then you're saying God's worthless. And we know that's not true. We know that God is love, and oftentimes we paint God as a bad picture. I know I have, and I did. But I realized that that's not God. That was the enemy trying to get into the way for me not seeing a true loving God that's there. The difference in my God came from the trauma and the background of physical and emotional abuse that I grew up into. There's forgiveness for my parents. I love my parents, and I know they tried. We're human. Do we allow grace that's there? We don't have to stay in a relationship that's abusive. That's not love. Authenticity comes from within when we recognize how to love ourselves in our imperfections and accepting all who we are to be and forgiving the mistakes that we've done. And when we're able to do that, we are able to have compassion and humanity with others that are around us. And what a beautiful world it can be if we share the love of torch and pass it on to the next. Had a client that's having trouble because he says, I'm afraid that I'm going to lose her. But I said, your behaviors and such, how you're treating her is losing her now. And it stemmed from because she had broken off with one guy, found him. When the first guy got out of prison, she went back to him and it didn't work out. So she went back to him again. And he's afraid that she's going to do that again. And he's been treating her emotionally hurtful. And so we've been working together about recognizing his hurt. Men, you need to be vulnerable with your women. Women, be soft with your men and how you approach them. Remember, love is not hateful. Love is patient. It's also gentle. And if we can be gentle with ourselves, how much more can we be gentle with other people? And so I hope this message of love, taking a sabbatical from relationships for a while to figure out who you are, can be helpful. and be able to thrive in a world that we could be authentic with ourselves and not having to settle for a relationship that's not there. We don't have to settle. But help each other by teaching and being upfront. It's being present. It's about being seen. It's about feeling emotional safe. And it's knowing that we have a choice. So until next time, I want you to take care and be ready for Valentine's Day, not just on a commercial part, but take the love that you're loving yourself and spread it around more. We just need a little bit more love in this world. So take care and God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode on Coach Soul. As we wrap up, we want to remind our listeners of a few key points. This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not substitute professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. The content shared here is based on professional opinion but may not apply to everyone's situation. Always consult with a qualified healthcare provider before making changes to your mental health care. If you're in a crisis, please seek immediate professional help or contact a crisis hotline. Listening to this podcast does not create a therapist-client relationship or personal advice. Please consult with your licensed mental health professional in your area. Remember, your mental health journey is unique. While we hope this information is helpful, it is crucial to work directly with the qualified personnel for your specific needs. Thank you again for tuning in to Coach Soul, and we'll see you next time.